Hey everyone, good morning. As you can probably tell, this is probably a little bit different filming than what you are probably used to. Because yes, I am using my my camcorder. Sorry about that. I'm using my camcorder to record. Now, if I go back and forth, I'm just checking to make sure nothing goes out of focus. Because sometimes this camcorder seems to um, like to fade out a little bit. But anyway, I wanted to talk about something that apparently any wrestling fan has been asking and wondering for the past 4 to 5 years. And that is, when is WWE going to finally grow a set, if you will, finally grow a set and allow Cena to go heel? Well, I'm pretty sure anybody, from NoDQ.com to the Off the Rope show, to the Wrestling Gurus, to Renegade Wrestling. I'm sure anybody who's anybody, PWR show, Dave Meltzer, any Richard Gray. I mean, anybody who's anybody that talks about wrestling, whether it's here on YouTube or on wrestling websites like Ringside News and No DQ and Wrestling News World. Anybody who's anybody that's talked about it has pretty much said the same thing. Until basically Vince McMahon, in their eyes, is afraid. I mean, it's been talked about year after year, but Vince McMahon is on the fence right now. It's like, Vince probably wants to do it, but then again, he doesn't want to disappoint the family-friendly culture that they're in right now. You see, the way it is like this. Cena represents the family-friendly portion of WWE. But then you got people like The Rock and CM Punk, who kind of represent sort of that rebellious, almost attitude-like culture that the older demographics enjoy. So basically, Vince McMahon, instead of, as people saying, growing that set that he needs to grow and allowing Cena to go that direction so that everybody can enjoy it, and everybody can enjoy Cena, is on the fence because Cena, along with a few others like Santino Marella, believe it or not, Zack Ryder, Hornswoggle, even Sin Cara and Rey Mysterio, instead of allowing them to go in a direction to where everybody can like them, they're stuck in the positions that they're in because he needs a portion of his roster to be family friendly. Now you take a look at the divas and you take a look at divas like Beth and Natalia. They're kind of like being aimed towards that older demographic that wants women's wrestling and women's competition instead of the pretty girl stuff all the time. And then you got the divas like Kelly, like Eve, like Alicia. And they're kind of like, they're kind of like, well, someone like Alicia, she could be borderline, if you will, kind of like on a borderline. She could be heel and babyface. But right now she's kind of like on the babyface side. But basically what that is to kind of the demographic. Like Kelly, Eve, and Alicia are kind of more the family-friendly portion of the Divas division. Well, divas like Beth and Natalia and even Karma, when she comes back, and whoever else they bring in that would fit that mold, are more of the divas, or more of the older demographic culture, attitude-like culture for the older demographic. So right now it's kind of like split down the middle. It's like half and half with the WWE. It's like they're giving one. It's like they're trying to, be 50-50 with the fans. They're trying to give one portion, 50% of the one half of the fan base happy with the family-friendly thing, and also keeping the sponsors happy with that family-friendly atmosphere. Well, they're trying to also please that older demographic, and it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of put them right in the middle of like, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when it comes down to it? And this family-friendly demographic, this kid demographic that you're aiming towards, with the likes of a Cena, with the likes of a Santino, with the likes of a Zack Ryder, with the likes of a Kelly, with the likes of an Eve and Alicia, and a Hornswoggle, and a Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. What are you going to do when that kiddie demographic and that family-friendly demographic gets older and they start acting more like the older demographic that's in favor of people like CM Punk, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mark Henry, believe it or not, The Rock, you know, Beth, Natalia, Karma. What are you going to do when they become part of that demographic in the future? What is WWE going to do? That is the question. That is the question, and only then will we probably get a definite answer. Now, you know, I can understand, you know, when people say Cena sucks, I can understand where they're coming from. I definitely can understand where you're coming from when you say Cena sucks. You know, because that's that older demographic that doesn't like that. Doesn't like the Cena they see. But it doesn't necessarily mean they hate Cena altogether. No. You see, they only chant that because they're trying, in their minds, they're trying to get Cena to go back to being maybe the babyface that was sort of like a Stone Cold, sort of like a Rock, but was basically known as the doctor of thugonomics. You know, rapped and said what he wanted to say, didn't care what people thought. And people cheered that. I mean, when he did his response a week after The Rock was announced as the host of WrestleMania, when he did his response to The Rock, how did he do it? He did it as the doctor of thugonomics, and everybody loved it. Even the older demographic loved it. When he sat down for his Money in the Bank contract signing with CM Punk and said that this is what the fans want, they want to be his heelish persona and all that, they cheered when he mentioned all that. They cheered it. You see, that's what the older demographic wants. And as much as Vince McMahon would like to please that, he needs a face to represent the family-friendly demographic that he's also trying to please. So he's got a face representing right now the older demographic in CM Punk and maybe The Rock, and possibly The Rock. Well, he's got a face representing the family-friendly portion, like, say, John Cena and Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. And you know, speaking of Sin Cara, you got him in a feud right now when somebody looks like he's out of LAX gang material. That could be heading towards an older demographic too. It's Hunico and Epico and Primo and all that. The truth is, like I said, until the day that some of this current kiddie, family-friendly demographic gets older and heads over to the demographic of the older demographic, if you know what I mean, and starts booing the likes of a Cena, starts booing the likes of Mysterio, starts booing the likes of a Kelly, along with that older demographic, along with the older demographic is right now, I should say, or basically what that current older demographic is doing right now. Only then will we possibly get an answer. But what it is, in my opinion, like I said, it's basically a 50-50 deal. He's trying to please that family-friendly demographic, kiddie demographic, which also, I guess you could say, the sponsors that they work with are a part of. But they're also trying to please that older demographic that wants things back to where they were, like in the extreme-wise, attitude era kind of deal. And you know, again, I don't blame them for wanting that to happen. But the thing is, it's all up to what the WWE thinks. It's all up to what the World Wrestling Entertainment thinks. It's all up to what Vince McMahon finally does. It's all up to what the creative team finally does. I mean, again, I understand where everybody's coming from, but it's basically right now it's a 50-50 deal. And I know you're thinking, well, what about guys like Randy Orton and Sheamus? Randy Orton and Sheamus, let's put it this way, they're kind of like in between. Sheamus, it's kind of like it's sort of like in between. He can go back and forth. They're kind of like back and forth guys. So guys like Randy Orton and Sheamus and even the Big Show, And even like I mentioned with Alicia Fox, and even the Bella Twins, they're kind of like in the middle, you know, right now. They're in the middle. Guys like The Miz and R-Truth, they're in the middle as well. They're in the middle. You know, they could go towards family friendly, or they can go to an older demographic. They're in the middle. So basically, they could switch. They're kind of like switchers. They could switch to older and please them, or to family friendly and please them. So they're kind of like in the middle. So I guess you could kind of say it's more of a, it's not just more of a 50-50 deal. It's more of a, how do I put this, 50-50, let's say it's 40-40-10 is what it is. 10% in the middle of those that I mentioned, from Randy to Sheamus to Big Show to Alicia to R-Truth to Miz, you know, to Hunico, who looks like he's more, you know, that, you know, those guys, Primo, Epico, those guys are like in the 10% of being in the middle. They can switch back and forth. But the other 40% that you have from the other 40% that you have basically is family friendly portion and older demographic portion. And what Vince McMahon needs to do is try to figure out how to, he and the creative team, the board of directors, they need to realize, okay, how do we please everybody without having people booing certain people? And these certain people that they're booing are supposed to be the baby faces. We don't know. All I can say is if Vince McMahon goes with the idea of putting Cena over on The Rock at WrestleMania, oh my goodness, you better get the Rock Squad out. That's all I can say. But basically, in response to what everybody's saying, from what everybody at the Off the Rope show, everybody at the Wrestling Gurus, J-Dub show, at the J-Dub show, you know, people at, you know, No DQ, Wrestling News World, the Renegade Wrestling, you know, the thing is, guys, we don't really know. I mean, Sean's View Entertainment, Rated RKO Jericho, I mean, guys, we don't know we don't know when and where it's going to happen, but it's going to take a certain moment and place in time, not just with the superstars and the divas, but with the fans, that's going to make that decision, make those decisions occur. But right now, the way I look at it, it's a 40-40-10 situation. 40%, WWE is basically pleasing 40% of the older demographic, but they're also pleasing 40% but they're also pleasing 40% of family-friendly demographic, and in the middle is that 10% of those that can switch back and forth. So that's just my thought right now on the whole situation when it comes to John Cena possibly going heel and anything else. You want to comment down below? Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you all later.